tell because I got a Delinkquent Duo tattoo on my arm, along with other Yu-Gi-Oh tattoos.
Whoa, show that. I want to see that. Oh my god.
So this is the number. I don't know where. Can you see it from the webcam?
Yeah, I see it just fine.
This is the number 2, and this is the number 1. And I did this for my brother and me. Obviously, I'm number 1. That's the bad part about it. But the good part is I got this.
Hey everybody, this is Kris Perovic, and I'm joined today by Jannick Löwecke, the winner of GFC12 with his innovative Drain Burn deck. Hey Jannick, say hello to everybody.
Hey there, what's up?
Okay, so I'm really bad at intros. So
Me too, no worries.
Well, first of all, we're back, buddy.
Man. This is faster than expected, huh?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that wasn't a knock at you. It's just more like I just didn't think that the format would allow you to succeed so quickly in rapid succession. I mean, we just had a conversation after you'd won FLC 17, and here you are, GFC 12, the next major tournament. The only thing that was in the middle was the Clash of Champions tournament, and here you are, like a functionally, I'm just gonna say like a back-to-back winner, and again with your innovative style, bringing to the table, and that's what we're here. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So first of all, for anybody who doesn't know, Jannick went undefeated. That's right. I think it was like,
yes.
Was it 7-0?
Yes.
7-0 at GFC 12 yesterday. We're recording this on Sunday, but it was yesterday on May 15th, Saturday, May 15th. And it was a super interesting tournament, and we'll talk more about that. But before we start, I just want to say, like, high level, before we get into the deck list, because that's what we're going to talk about first. Is there anything that you have to say about this tournament, this environment that we're in, leading up to it, that made you want to run this Drain Burn deck? I'm going to pull up on the screen, show everybody what we're talking about.
Yeah. So you know the funny thing is, I literally switched to Drain Burn, I think 10 minutes before I registered, and I registered very late. Like, I think I registered almost an hour before the event began.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an idea running something with King Dragoon, Horus, and so on and so on. So, like, also with Scheiberstein and like Metamorphosis over Fassler, and something completely different, literally completely different.
Okay.
And I don't know, like then, like I said, like very, very, very close to the event, I wasn't really feeling it anymore. I was like, nah, eventually that's not what I should run. And I thought about running this Drain Burn with Zombie before, and I was asked today from the staff of GoatFormat.com, like, how my preparation for the event was, and as a fun fact, I gathered all the cards together, like from my collection, put them in new sleeves, put them in the binder, and was looking at it like incredible 2021, and still having real cards,
physical card, yeah,
real cards that you can touch and not only see on the screen. Incredible. But I was looking at these cards, and man, I really like those OG cards, especially burn cards. I played them when I was younger, and I was thinking back at this, and then I was like, nah, I can't let Drain Burn down. Drain Burn, and in general, like, Wave Motion Cannon, this is absolutely like where my heart is. Like, almost every other player hates it, but this really was like the nostalgic push for me that says, okay, go for it. I mean, I didn't test the deck itself, but I played Drain Burn before. Obviously, I'd say I'm very experienced in playing Burn. I played it back in the days like 2006, 2007, and so on. So yeah, that was more or less what got me to play it yesterday, gladly.
Well, I mean, Drain Burn is, I mean, it takes its roots all the way back to Kamigadosi Burn.
Yes.
And even before that, I mean, you're doing something special here that actually reminds me a lot of OD Burn, which is that transition side to a different kind of deck entirely, whereas CO Burn was kind of like all in on that lockdown strategy and focused on skill drain. But you transition into zombies. That's something we can all see here. One of those things I want to ask you. Well, I mean, we can get into it, but I do want to know like how often you actually sided in to zombies, or if you felt really comfortable with main deck. But either way, my point is that Drain Burn has a long and storied history in this game, and yet still here now in 2021, you're doing something I don't think I've ever seen before, which is taking the zombie recruiter package and throwing it into the mix. And it's, I guess, the thing that really excites me about that, the thing that makes it really interesting, is if somebody had asked me 2 weeks ago and they said, look, somebody's going to show up at this tournament, it's going to be with Drain Burn, but check it out, it's going to have zombies in it, I would have said, that's Delinkquent, right? And so I mean, I'm just saying, like, the idea that you did this and that you found success with something that's true to who you are and like what you enjoy really excites me. And so that's why I wanted to do this video with you, because it's awesome. I told you like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. I was like, you did the coolest thing that I've seen anybody do in like 2 years, and here we are like 3 weeks later, and you just did the coolest thing again, man. So
thanks.
Let's talk about it. Let's go into the deck. Everybody can check it out right now. It's got the 3 rats, the 3 turtles. It's got the Kokies, which are, sort of like Spirit Reapers after, skill gains on the board. You've got the Morphing Jar because it's Morphing Jar. You've got Breaker, which is interesting in the main. And you've got Sagan. You also have, this is really interesting, you main deck 3 Dust Shoots, you main deck 3 7 Tools, and you main deck 2 Magic Jammers. And so, I mean, anyone looking at this, I mean, I'm sure they've seen Drain Burn before, but they probably more familiar with the Big Shield Gardena variant with reinforcements and maybe Curse of Royal. But so I guess as compared to other Drain Burn decks, tell me a little bit about why you went this route outside of, I just want to play with some zombies. Like, because the zombies are interesting, don't get me wrong, but there's also some interesting things here in the trap lineup. So just talk about the differences there and what led you to do that.
Yeah. So, well, gosh, that's a lot to talk about, but I really enjoy talking about burn. So let's go. So first of all, let's start unusual and start eventually with the cards I don't play. So I don't play Ceasefire. I don't play Magic Cylinder, which are more or less considered to be staples in a lot of burn decks. I don't play Fake Trap, also not Curse of Royal, and so on and so on. And I wanted to make a transition side that doesn't let me lose anything in game 2 and game 3. And a lot of
so just to be clear, that was something that you thought about when you were constructing the main deck? Like, you knew that you
absolutely
were okay, all
absolutely
right. That's really good. I was going to lead into that about like what in terms of the process. So I mean, just to be clear for the people who are watching, is people game 2 are going to side deck Mobiuses, Dust Tornadoes, Royal Decree, Cliff the Trap Remover against you, etc., etc. So you definitely, if you can, you want to transition out to something that's completely unaffected by that. Back in the day, people used to side deck from Burn to Cyberstein OTK. So it wasn't uncommon for, even when you played against Burn, to side in your Wabakus or something like that. And then when I was talking about OD Burn before, it was like we transitioned into Monarchs. So when people were bringing in all this anti-Stein stuff, like Karibos, you were facing down Mobiuses and Destaloses and stuff. And so the idea of transitioning side away from Burn is a super powerful strategy. And we just haven't seen anyone do it like this before. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to give some context for the viewer that this idea of transition siding is something that's been done, but never quite like this. So yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you can keep going and talk about starting from, you knew you wanted to transition side.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely the reference to CO/OD Burn is, of course, like very accurate, because I would be lying, man. Like even back in 2007, I checked metagame.com. We talked about this last time, which is archived on your website gladly. So like, of course, I knew the deck back then. Like I played it 2007, and I really tried a lot of different versions with it. But the versions a lot of time had some issues in Goat format, and a lot of like my biggest issue was that the transitioned deck like for game 2 and 3 was just not competitive enough because it still had like suboptimal cards. I don't know, like eventually keeping ceasefire in whatever. So this time I really wanted to make a deck that has only like really 15 cards different from each other, meaning like I would play the main deck exactly as I would play the side deck or the smokescreen version / conversion side. So I really if you count them, you would see it's most of the time
you keep the skill drain and dash you.
Yes,
okay,
keeping
right,
both.
Okay,
but eventually but the good thing is coming eventually now to the 7 tools, you can be very flexible. Like if you're facing a deck, you want to switch your strategy for game 2 and or 3, then you could decide on eventually like siding out skill drain and keeping 7 tools, or siding out dust shoot and keeping 7 tools, and so on and so forth. So the general strategy would be siding out 2 jammers, 3 7 tools, 3 wave motions, 2 level limits, 2 gravity binds, and 3 nightmare wheel. Yes, exactly. So this would be like the general core, but depending on your matchup, you obviously might change some cards. And in a lot of games, I sided like a little part of it. For instance, like in game 2 or 3, I always side Breaker and MST, sometimes Heavy Storm, even though if I keep the burn engine inside, because Heavy Storm is Heavy Storm, you might clear a decree. If your opponent starts in game 2 and sets like Dust Tornado, whatever you say, thank you, Heavy Storm, and then that's your game, and so on and so on. So obviously, like, it's very hard to go too much into detail, but just as some ideas. So you can technically like switch all 15 cards, but you can also do something in between. The interesting thing is like coming to the actual cards I play. For instance, 7 tools. 7 tools is a very ballsy card to play because obviously like I already pay a lot of things to pay. I play like triple judgment, triple skill drain. I play in Ring of Destruction that also lowers my own life point, and so on and so on. But I really felt good about 7 tools, and 7 tools is so damn good right now in this very meta game, because you can counter opposing solemn judgments, and
so big.
Absolutely, and so many threats are traps. Dust Tornado, Wing Blast, Löwecke Break, Judgments eventually, and so on and so forth. Once again, so you have so much good cards you can counter with it. And on the other hand, you can also go aggro with 7 tools, because you don't always have Gravity Bind or level. Excuse me. Sometimes you just have a Ryokoki on the field and eventually like a Pyramid Turtle and a Giant Red. And even though I play a burn deck, I'm going to attack you, of course.
Every time you can. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this like chip damage or even big damage is awesome. And when you attack an opponent and you can use 7 tools to counter his Mirror Force or whatever, and then like push for 2000 damage or so, this is awesome. This is like two turns on wave motion, or like 4 turns with a Nightmare Wheel. This is awesome. So 7 tools is very, very versatile. And before the event, I was thinking about whether to play Curse of Royal or 7 tools. But first of all, Curse of Royal doesn't have this offensive aspect I just mentioned. And also, I was assuming that more people would consider Phoenix Wing Blast, because I know there were some discussions going on. Like I mean, I think it's an endless discussion whether to play Raigeki Break or Wind Blast. At least, eventually I'm wrong, but I had at least the impression that a little bit more people were reliant on Wing Blast. And fun fact, I saw more Wind Blast than Raigeki Breaks in this very tournament. Probably not too representative, but I mean, for me personally worked out. So
Sure.
Statistically, probably was still a big gamble, but still worked out. So screw it. And this was absolutely awesome. So 7 tools. I'm very glad because Curse of Royal can negate MST, which 7 tools can't, but can't negate Wing Blast and so on, and you can't use it offensively. A lot of times when you already did it, Solemn Judgment, eventually there are situations where you have I don't know, 2,000 life points left, and your opponent might have a Ring of Destruction for game. You can also counter it. So 7 tools is so damn versatile.
Would you stick with 3 7 tools if you? Well, I guess it kind of goes into what I was going to ask you a little bit later, but if you can go back during the tournament and you did know that you were going to win, just in terms of how you drew and stuff like that, is there anything here that you felt was too much? Would you go down to 1 Magic Jammer? Would you go down to 2 7 tools or anything like that?
Eventually, I would cut 1 7 tools for 1 Ceasefire to relieve my opponents from their pain a little bit earlier. But despite from that, I wouldn't change a single card. No.
Wow. I mean, so I could totally see this. And the other thing is, when you're playing against it, I watched some of your matches. When you're playing against it, the idea that it's really difficult to, how do I put this? It's difficult to play against because when you're typically playing against a Dragon Burn deck, you think, okay, I can hold my Sakuretsu armor in my hand because I'm gonna wait till I get a Graceful, or if you're playing Chaos Turbo, you want to maximize your card destruction or something like that, or you want to use it as a tribe discard or something like that. And you're thinking, this is not a resource that I have to commit to the board. / I will eventually want to use Heavy Storm, and I don't want to just destroy my own cards, etc. But when you're playing against this, if that Gravity Bond or level limit aren't there locking you out of the game, they're gonna be that 1200, that 1400 is gonna get in there, and it's gonna be annoying. It's gonna be because that just turns off the clock. That lowers the clock for the amount of turns that you have to wait once you have your lock established, that you need to wait to get the end the game. So the idea that every card kind of comes into play, it's very difficult to play against, makes it for me an interesting deck to both pilot and watch be successful. And in particular, just because it's such a unique combination. People have run Skill Drain, people have run Trap Dust Shield, people have tried 7 tools, but with Nightmare Wheel, what? It's such a unique it's a unique combination of cards that they function to lower your opponent's life points, but it's not necessarily in a straight, well understood way. And in particular, also, I want to say this card choice of 7 tools is really unique for the time. I mean, if we weren't in it 2 years ago, this is not a deck you would have run. The idea that everyone is on Solemn Judgment or Raigeki Break or increasing popularity of Phoenix Wind Blast. If that wasn't a thing, I don't think you would have run that. And and conversely, I don't know if Curse of Royal would have been as good, because it doesn't marry up, for the exact reasons you said. It doesn't marry up with the aggressive elements of what you're trying to do. So it's interesting that the format itself is sort of or has sort of taken shape around this being viable in a way it wasn't before, and it makes me interested. What's going to come next? What's the format going to become? Where there's another opportunity like this that just sort of exploits a common theme across Warrior decks and Chaos Turbo decks. And anyway, so that I get the main deck. These are interesting choices. In particular, like you said, 7 tools over Curse of Royal.
Yeah.
particular for the aggressive element, and in conjunction with Trap Dust Shoot, just to lock them out of monsters and get some damage in, etc., etc. Do you have anything else to say about the main deck before we move on to the side deck and the transition?
Eventually highlighting Trap Dust Shoot, and also quickly come back into Magic Jammer. Magic Jammer is a card I always felt a little bit hesitant, including 2 copies, because I think you also asked before. 2 copies without playing Serpent, but Serpent has a lot of function. It can stall. It always comes back, but I thought I don't really need it. And also, like in Drainburn, there are a lot of situations where you just got like redundant copies of Skill Drain, of another level limit, and so on and so on. Because in Skill Drain Burn, you rarely have the luxury problem of being able to actually play a second bind or second level limit, because you need your spell and trap.
I was just going to ask you if you had ever locked yourself out in the course of any of your games by trying to play around your opponent being able to Löwecke break your skill drain, and you're setting a second skill drain next to it, but now you don't have the board space to activate a wave motion.
Yeah.
Did you ever get in those spots throughout the tournament?
Throughout this tournament, no, but I've been in this place before. So Drainburn is harder to play than a lot of people might think, and so I was there was one time against my brother where I had already like 4 spell and traps or were already covered with cards, and I had, I think, another 7 tools or something on my hand. But if I would have said it, I would have had like 3 protections. I think 7 tools, Solemn, second 7 tools, and then skill drain and level limit. And there wouldn't have been anything to make damage. Plus, my deck cards were lower than my brother's, so he could have just say, okay, exactly, deck me out by exactly doing nothing, like just. Or then I would have at some point like awkwardly like summoning my own monster, solemn it up. Yeah, we don't do this shit over here. So I was like, okay, Nana, don't be too greedy. Like 2 protections are fine, and then just wait for another card. So that doesn't happen. Eventually.
Sorry, I was gonna say, I don't know. Did you watch that Clash video I did? Like, did you? Or I talked about.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I watched it.
So I was gonna tell you, is like, so not to, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to say, because we're talking about a topic that was I'm interested in, and it went into my deck building process for Clash. I was looking at Lockdown Burn generally as a deck type to use for Clash, but my version of it was going to be focused on Necro Valley, because Necro Valley doesn't take up the spell trap slot, and I wasn't going to use Fake Trap. I mean, that's another thing. When people run Drain, they often run Fake Trap, because it uniquely protects traps in the way that, anyway, like it covers Mystical Space Typhoon and Löwecke Break, but you don't have to pay the 1,000 for 7 tools, because it also works against Mystical Space Typhoon. Anyway, my point was that, did you give any thought to doing a different, like I had a different version of this. It's not good. I tried it out. It's not good. I'm just asking. Did you try a different version of this, like a Gravekeeper version of this?
Yes.
Necro Valley?
Yes, I made top 8 last year at GFC Euros with it. Fun fact.
Oh wow.
With Gravekeeper, Skill Drain Burn. Yeah.
I wish I had that up, but I don't have that up right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they published top 8 deck lists, so if you're interested, you could eventually watch it afterwards, or all the viewers as well, if you guys are interested in this. I also had it in my mind before the tournament. I ran, I think, 3 spies, 2 guards, Necro Valley, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. Was also decent, but the problem is, like, post side, I also then did a smoke screening into an aggressive Gravekeepers. I really like Gravekeepers, but it all comes down to the same problem: no Necro Valley, no win.
Yes.
This is and the problem is when you do the smoke screening, what will your opponent board naturally against burn, spell, and
dust tornadoes and Mobiuses and things like that. Things that are already going to do well against Gravekeeper. Yeah, exactly. This is one of the reasons why I got off of it. But but anyway, it was just, yep, I understand everything you're saying. So let me ask you this: what about the same concept? Is there so there was in this tournament another person who ran Gravekeeper, and I forget who they were. I think they main deck Kaikus with the Gravekeepers. They were really anti-chaos.
Mhm.
But I don't know if they had. They might have. But I don't know if they had such a strong. How do I put this? I've always said for a really long time that like it doesn't really, to me, it didn't really make sense to use Necrovalley in like a beatdown deck. It made more sense in a lockdown deck because you're doing the one thing, which is protect the spell and traps. But that said, if you are gonna side from Necrovalley into something else, you don't want to do something that's necessarily vulnerable to that. So I can
Yeah.
understand side A decking into an aggressive deck that doesn't run Gravekeeper monsters, still main deck or still keeps the Necrovalley in the main deck, but also maybe boards into like Kaikus and stuff like that. And I guess what I'm trying to get at here is like, you know, between 7 tools and skill drain, these are a lot of life point payments. I imagine there's another version of this where instead of skill drain, you could be running the Necrovalley and you could be doing something that isn't 7 tools, but does a similar strategy. Do you have anything like that in your deck vault that is worth talking about or worth exploring? Or is this just like you've tried every version of this and it's just not going to be as good?
That's a tough question, man. I think, generally speaking, I think I tried the drain burn conversion side with a lot of things.
Mhm.
Like, I tried with Chaos Recruiter, was mediocre. Then the Gravekeeper thing. I still have somewhere in my vault an interesting version with warriors, like with Big Shield Gardener, reinforcement in the main, and then swapping to Chaos Warrior or something. I think you could easily break down the difference between those two decks in 15 cards. So it technically also I think a good idea, but I don't know. I think it's somehow very good. Of course, Big Shield Gardener with Skill Drain, it's awesome, but it's also like more or less the same principle. So it's a little bit different, and I think it might be worth a shot. Might be very good. You could also do it vice versa and play a regular Chaos Warrior deck and then just
Mhm.
side in burn. But that was not the question. I would say like outside of that, like more or less it all comes back to the same skeleton. I would say I don't really, at least not at this moment, have another idea. I think the zombie idea, the zombie package in this deck was something innovative, I'd say. But aside from that, I wouldn't have another idea yet at this point.
Okay, so let's get into the side deck. I mean, now we've gone over different ways you could build this deck, and there are lots, and some of them might be just as viable. But you're the thing that separates this deck from all the other Drain Burn decks, and the thing that makes it interesting and worth talking about is that it's zombies. And
Yeah.
I mean, you know, warriors are a thing. If somebody had done this with warriors, I'd have been like, all right, cool. If somebody had done this with gravekeepers, I'd have been like, all right, that's pretty neat. But you're sticking with zombies. And after FLC 17, you know, there was an uptick of people playing zombies. It wasn't that significant. A lot of people had written the deck off. I mean, we made a video and I was telling people, don't write this deck off. You're stupid to write
Yeah.
this deck off. It may not draw the best for you. Tribute to the Dune may not be something that's in the optimal version of this deck, and especially in 3 copies, and you could play with it. But there's something here, and I think by and large, like people were just like, "That's nice, good,
Yeah.
good job, Jannick, good job, Delinkquent." Like, you know, I'm proud of you. But then you know the ones, yeah, but here it is. You're here back for round 2. You know, I think you ran zombies at Clash, and
Yeah.
fortunately for me, we didn't get paired up against each other. Unfortunately for me, you know, that didn't go so well. But here you are. You tweaked it a bit. You made it to put it into your side deck. And well, the first question I've got is, how often did you use your side deck? How often did you actually do that transition? Did you wait? My second question is, when you did you wait to after you saw cards like Real Decree, Nostrino, Mobius, or did you just snap it game 2? And then the third thing is, how'd you like it?
Oh man. So first of all, I transition sided a lot. Like for instance, against my brother, I did this like every other game than game one. So one match I won 2-0. So there was only game two, but also in grand finals. Fun fact: I watched the stream today. Like they uploaded it on YouTube, and the commentators were very like unsure if I would go for the transition side, because I had like Kaiku's in there and my brother was playing Monarchs like with Cold Wave and Cyberstein, but nothing that's very vulnerable to Kaiku, and I still went for it. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I would say, to be fair, it was not exactly 50-50. Like not exactly every second game that I went for the smokescreen board, but I'd say at least like in 40% of the games I played. Nice. But it was definitely depending on my matchup. If I'm playing against Warriors, why should I change the strategy? Why on earth?
Free wins. Like, you keep the free wins when you get them.
Exactly. I mean, I could show off how cool my zombie deck is, and like, absolutely like being a bragger just to show off. But like you said, I prefer the free wins then. And the second question, waiting for Royal Decree. I think in most decks you can more or less predict if they're gonna side in Royal Decree or not. A lot of decks that play a lot of traps, I was very sure they would not side in Decree. And also, oh man, that's funny. I don't know, probably when we are talking right now, it's not published, but eventually when you upload the video, I was making a little bit of fun, because coming eventually back and making a 2007 reference when CO and OD Burn like won a couple of jumps. I think 2 jumps. One guy who was it, like Kenny So, I think.
Kenny So from Kamagata's won SJC Indianapolis, yeah.
And Louis Raimundo, I think, and Eric Wu also went second or something. Man, I don't know. I definitely read some of the old coverages like a month or two ago. Good old time. But whatever. Like, it's funny because every time I saw like Skill Drain Burn winning and I loved this deck, I was asking myself, why is no one running Royal Decree in their side deck? Like, no one is a little bit exaggerated, but so much more people could have played it. Of course, it doesn't fit in any main deck, I get that, but I still felt like there was a lack of Royal Decree. And I still feel right now, back in 2021, that people were not playing it. And I think like in the interview afterwards that GoatFormat.com made with me today, I also pointed this out. Like, people, like, I feel like a mother telling their kids to, yo kids, eat your vegetables. I feel like, yo guys, play your Royal Decrees, man. Yeah, it's important. I know that it doesn't fit in any decks, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also didn't play them in Clash, didn't you?
Right. No. So this is actually what I was just saying before, that like,
because you predicted that no one would go for shitty burn decks.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, specifically, I mean, this is the thing. Like, a lot of people looked at my list, and I think they took some of the wrong lessons from it. They were looking at it like, okay, Chaos Turbo without Night Assailant, that's viable. Chaos Turbo with Sakuretsu's, that's viable. What they didn't maybe realize is that it was a very small field. And I had an opportunity beforehand, because we had to pre-register, to like look at who was playing, and then look at who I knew was playing and what I knew about them and what they were more inclined to play. Like, I didn't think Jonathan LeBounty was going to show up with Green Burn, right? He's going to show up with like an aggro deck, and I just did that for the list of participants, and you were the only like a little wild card. Well, not you. There was you and another person who I thought was going to run Reason and Gate Turbo, but like for the most part, I actually thought that everyone was going to be on Chaos Turbo or some kind of aggro deck, or very limited copies of Thunder Dragon Chaos Control. In fact, like, everyone kept saying, like, oh yeah, everyone's going to run Thunder Dragon Chaos Control, because it's a bunch of skillful players, and I was just like, like everyone kept saying that. Skillful players want long games, and I was like, no, they want free games, and they're gonna stick with the deck that they think is best, and the same thing that they've been running for lately. But anyway, I didn't expect anyone to run Burn, but that's the only reason my side deck was as like hyper focused on aggro and Chaos Turbo as it was. But generally, that's I could not have gotten, if I had played my same exact deck at this event, I would have got creamed. There's no way. I couldn't survive playing against you or your brother. I don't think. I think it would have been like, if I played you and then your brother, I would have gone 0-2 drop. So like, people have to really cater their deck choices to the tournament they're in. And if you're playing in a tournament with 100 and what was it, how many, 118, something like that?
118, yeah.
118 players, like you can't only be focused on 3 decks. You're gonna run into a lot of decks, and you're gonna need cards like Royal Decree in your side deck just to even deal with that when you come across it. And the problem with these bigger tournaments is your chances of running into these decks are so small that you don't have the EV to justify like running the Royal Decree. But that just gives everyone who wants to use a Drained Bird deck like the opportunity to skirt on through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I believe, actually, we'll talk about this in a bit, but I think you're the only Drain Burn player in this field. So I don't know that I blame anybody else. Like, everyone else is kind of like, oh, I'm hoping he gets knocked out by somebody else. But if everybody's doing that, if that is everybody's game plan, that's your ticket to the finals. Yeah, this was like a great tournament for you to bring this in. And then just to say, is there anything about this? I mean, the side deck looks like, I mean, it's a little different than your zombie deck last time at FLC 17, but the major elements are here. You've got your beat sticks and your zombie engine and your list of staples. Is there anything worth saying here, do you think, or do you think this is pretty self-explanatory?
I mean, probably rather unusual is that I only play 1 copy of Book of Life. I was considering playing a second one, but then I rather wanted to include Exile Force. And I was also, I was super ambivalent towards Duo. It's funny because in the last video we made, we talked about it, and you gave a very diplomatic answer to what I said. I was like more or less saying, well, like to make it short, you don't need to, and you was like, okay, I get your point. I don't know if I agree with this, but very very diplomatic answer. But man, coming back to this, I don't think I would have needed to this tournament either. And regardless, if you look at the just the zombie aggro post boarding deck or the main deck, I actually got more or less punished for playing Duo. I'm not sure, but I don't think I ever really got a lot of value out of it. Like if I sided it in, what rarely happened, I drew it like mid game, late game in a situation where I needed something different, and it was just very unnatural. I mean, even though I performed with the exact same idea in FLC 17 like very well, it felt a little bit awkward to run 3 dust shoots and no Duo.
Yeah,
feels a little bit, let's say, inconsistent, especially because when you have a deck with skill drain with dust shoot, like it's my brother brought that up. I have no information to back this up, but my brother also played a little bit of Magic the Gathering, and he brought up that in Magic the Gathering you call control decks sometimes decks that just shut down everything the opponent does. I have no clue if that's true, but I just follow him blindly, of course, because I'm a loyal brother. And Duo is, of course, like a card that can shut down some plays of the opponent because it just reduces his options and the plays he could make. And just by taking away cards, he of course also like limit the opposing reactions. However, if I run skill drain, of course my opponent a lot of times has some dead cards in his hand, and like some flip monsters he would probably be never able to resolve. So Duo was something. I really love the card, but very, very mixed. So to make it short, or to make it cut here, like eventually, like think about kicking out the Duo, eventually adding 1 Book of Life, but I think 1 copy is also fine. Eventually find something else. Eventually a Tribe Infecting Virus, because
I was just gonna say Tribe.
Yeah, because you can still activate its effect when skill drain is on the field to ditch a cocky, then reborn it. GG.
So yeah, I mean, I hate that you took my bullet point right out of my mouth.
Sorry, man.
But no, I was gonna say I've actually said for a long time, in Gravekeepers, for example, I didn't think it makes any sense to main deck Delinkquent Duo. What you have Necker Valley up, you activate Delinkquent Duo, and like, okay, they're gonna discard Premature. So it's like, what was the point of that? And so that's one of those things when you run Skill Drain and you also run Trap Dust Shoot, like part of me is thinking the same thing. Like, okay, well, who cares if I send back Magician of Faith that isn't going to do anything? Now, given there's plays they have, this is what makes Skill Drain vulnerable. Like they can flip Faith, Chain Book of Moon, or Chain Torrential Chain Ring, or whatever, and make it resolve. So yeah, you get away with just locking them out. Also, more importantly, you probably like leave their field bare so you get some direct attacks in. And it's sort of like your preemptive removal, right? And it gives you that information that you need to set up your aggressive elements of your deck to get in shots. So it's like, okay, I get it. I can't really say much about it. It's also easy to activate. The other thing is in a burn deck or in a drain burn deck, the idea that you can set a card and you can activate it of your own volition, and you don't have. It's not like a responsive card. It's not a protection card. These are good, and just to get some information in the middle of the game, you've got a drain, a solemn, and you're holding onto a 7 tools, and you got like a level limit and a wave motion, and you just need to know, like, do I need to commit this second protection card right now or whatever? But the idea that Just You gives you that information, okay, look, I get all that. But Duo doesn't do that. Duo is just like a random discard part of it, and then even when the aggro part of it, if they're siding into Dust Tornadoes, Mobius's Decrees, or whatever, like I don't think you necessarily want to Duo just a random garbage card. And in particular, if you're going to keep the Decree, not the Decree, the Skill Drain and the 7 tools in your main deck, that's expensive. It gets really pricey. I actually, in this particular version, I'm actually all on board with you not using Duo. So it's funny because before I was like, I think you do want Duo, and then this time I'm like, no, you shouldn't want Duo. So you did the opposite of what I would have thought both times.
I would just sorry for interrupting, but I can only highlight everything you said. Trap Dust Shoot was overperforming. The knowledge, and also like, come on, you don't always start with Drain, and then a Magician of Faith can be a big problem. But just the knowledge. For instance, it was, I think it was Winners Final against Fusion. Like, I opened with Dust Shoot, and I had a Magic Jammer set, and he had like a hand he couldn't really do anything against my deck, plus a Pot of Greed. Guess what? I sent back card X, and then immediately, not thinking a second, jammered his Pot of Greed, and guess what? I won. So, and that's what Duo can't do, plus the 1,000 life points also matters.
All right. So yeah, I dig this. I got nothing more to add to the main deck. Do you want to talk about well, I guess I was gonna say I want to talk about the tournament overall, but before I do that, before I talk about the meta game and the fact that it was 118 players and like what they used, before I get into that, I want to ask, just reflecting on your matches, were any of them, and I'm going to change up the display so we're not looking at your whole deck, we'll just get a better shot of your face now. Did anything give you a hard time? Is there anything that you saw and you were like, man, I really regret making my deck this way because here's a particular hole that you ran into? Or was it just, you went 7-0. Was this just like easy street? Were you on another level? Were you playing a different game, or were any of these matches in particular remarkable?
It was absolutely super weird tournament. Like the first, at least 3 matches, eventually 4. I don't remember this exactly well, but the first 3 matches at least were absolutely a pain to play for me. I opened up so many times with, let's say, 3 monsters, 7 tools, and I don't know, man, random card like a Nightmare Wheel or whatever. Like, absolutely had very, very hard times because of me drawing shitty. But at the beginning, I was like, okay, that's what I deserve for playing this kind of deck. So I didn't want to complain. but like it wasn't. It was not because of the. It sounds weird, but a lot of people forget that Yu-Gi-Oh still has this huge luck component, like that can't change. So I think overall I had. I think my opponents played well. Overall, I saw some blunders they did, but overall I think they played very well. But it was more or less like, I mean, it's drain burn when you open with Gravity Bind, Solemn, Skill Drain,
What are you gonna
Recruit. Yeah, exactly. Like you can turn off your brain and then turn it on 10 minutes later. But yeah, I think like the first 3 matches I was very unlucky, and the last 4 matches I was very lucky. So it was more or less autopilot. This but doesn't mean that my opponents were weak. They absolutely weren't. But I didn't really felt like struggling the last matches, but felt like struggling the first matches, but mainly because of my draw.
Yeah, all right, I get that. I mean, that's what the deck does. When you open up with it in a particular way, it becomes impossible to stop. That's why you need a side deck for it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when did you play your brother first? By the way, was it in those first 3 rounds, or was it after that?
I think round 4 or 5.
Gotcha.
Didn't I think might be 4.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you opened up well against him, basically what you're saying, twice, and that he couldn't really do much about you in either match.
Yeah, man, I was really feeling shitty. So I think every game I started, I opened with Dust Shoot first of all, and Dust Shoot was neck breaking every single time. And like in both matches, like this, I think let's say 4th round and in the finals, I in game 1 had a devastating Morphing Jar, like a Morphing Jar where I set my full hand and then drew 5 new cards. So that was pretty huge. And like in the first match we played, he slept on the Morphing Jar. He did not really see this coming. And I even had Morphing Jar and Ring of Destruction on my hand. And this is my favorite opening ever. Set Morphing Jar, set Ring. This is, for me personally, my favorite GOAT opening ever.
I love it.
Without anything coming close. But you know, I was like, he was playing Cold Wave and so on and so on. And I knew he knew my deck, so I was setting 3 more cards. I didn't even wanted to make a sophisticated play. I was like, nah, whatever. I don't give a damn, setting everything. And he did not really see this coming, because it obviously could have also been a Recruiter. And in the second game, like, he predicted the Morphing Jar better, but still, like, he had, I think, 2 Monarchs, a BLS in hand.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I caught that in the finals, and it's funny, my dog got in this shot. She just wants to lay down. So, yeah, I caught that in the finals where you were like deja vu, because it's the same thing again. Yeah, no, it was
very lucky. Obviously, this is just the cards the algorithm gave me. Like, it's not my natural born skill.
Was he in the same house as you at the same time you were playing? Did you hear him yell or anything like that? Was he throwing anything at you?
No. That's why I was on a lower level of the house, like one time downstairs.
Man, you're so like. If I was playing my brother, let's just say, I imagine he would have had some internet connectivity problems, and I would have won by disconnect. Especially if he's gonna do something like that. As soon as if he resolves a Morphing Jar against me like that, I'm just going in to turn off the router or something like that.
Well, you know, fun fact. I was about to bring this joke, but I didn't end up bringing it. So very glad I can bring it right now, because it perfectly fits to your thing. The first time I was in grand finals of the GFC was also with a burn with conversion side, and it was 2 or 3 a.m. over here, and this is the time where my router does its restart. And guess what? It was before Dueling Book had the log back in function that doesn't lose you in the match. I mean, probably it would have taken too long anyway. So last time in grand finals, I got a disconnect. Like, game was a little bit in my opponent's favor, but I still had, like, let's say, at least 40% chance of winning it. And, you know, I was thinking, man, how funny would this be? Like, I don't know, 30, 40 people were watching, and then there was a disconnect. But this time for both players, because we were in the both house, in the same house. Like this would have been so weird, and nobody would have guessed what's going on. I was about to make this joke, man. Hopefully, we get a router disconnect again. But yeah, well, guess what? It didn't happen because I think like the tournament I think started a little bit earlier, or at least went super smooth. Gladly, no slow players on there. This didn't happen.
No, I hear everything you're saying. I was the other part of that was, I mean, so I didn't actually know until it was the finals that it was you against your brother, and that was, I mean, I know you talked about him last video, and I know we've talked about him generally, but I didn't make the connection that AlephYa was I didn't know that was your brother, and I was thinking of like, is there a way structurally in terms of the tournament to split a championship? Because I don't know. That's the other part. Like I joked about the disconnect from my brother, but the other part is it's got to be really tough to tell. You know what? Actually, one second. I'm gonna throw up his deck list so people know what we're talking about. This is what your brother ran. It was a. I mean, it's classified as Monarch, but it does run 2 Steins and 3 Cold Waves, and I mean, Cold Wave works in conjunction with Monarchs because those are big bodies that are going to connect with damage. So Monarchs by themselves with Cold Wave is kind of strong. But the idea that Mystic Tomato can search out a Stein and then you activate Cold Wave, and unless your opponent changed something right then and there, that's going to be a big problem. So this is a very interesting deck. Let's talk about it more in a little bit. But before we get to that, I was just going to say the idea that your brother showed up at this event, and in particular with the deck, that it hasn't really been seen quite like this. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Monarchs built this way, and didn't, like, you know, just kind of threw caution to the wind. Didn't care about what convention said. He said, I'm going to do my own thing. And here he is against the finals against his brother, who already has a title under his belt. I imagine that if I were you and I opened up Trap Dust Shoot against my brother, I would also feel really bad because I'm thinking, you know, this is not necessarily the way I want to take it. I guess let me ask you, did you feel any of that? Have you guys talked since then? Is there any bad blood right now in the Löwecke household? Is there anything like that?
Nah, I mean I was constantly making those jokes, but now all good. Like no bad blood. I mean, yeah, let's be honest. Of course, it's shitty, and I don't know if I wouldn't have had the opportunity to make this quote unquote like a little bit historic back-to-back tournament win, I would have eventually scooped it and say you deserve it, because this deck is so cool. Like I was around when he designed it. Like he had this idea with Cold Wave, and then I was absolutely like hooked by the card. I mean, I knew it from Gladial Beast time and so on and so on. And like for those of you who eventually don't know, like Cold Wave was a thing back in 2008 slash 2009, eventually at least 2008, when Gladial Beast Bizarros came out, like a monster that could shoot up to 2 cards on the field. And in Goat format, you could a little bit have a similar effect with Mobius, the Frost Monarch. A little, of course.
I was gonna say, just to be clear, that this is the thing that I just want to say about his deck. I was gonna save this for that, but I'll just touch on it now.
Yeah.
The thing that makes this super interesting is that 2 years ago, Cold Wave was trash. Like it's just there. You could not play Cold Wave because Scapegoat gets trained to Cold Wave. So unless you're doing something with Urgara, I can't pronounce the Panda guy. Yeah. Unless you're doing something with that, the idea of being able to abuse Cold Wave just really doesn't even seem viable. But you know, here we are, 2021. The metagame has been constantly evolving, and yet we're at this point where you can reintroduce some ideas that we've previously discarded and wrote off as not viable. And you know, they have this new life, and that's what's gonna keep pushing the format forward and letting it evolve in ways that I don't think any of us actually are I don't think any of us are equipped today to imagine what the format's going to look like in 2 years from now. And part of it is just because we're in uncharted territory. The idea that you get to 118 person GFC, and the finals are Drainbird with a Zombie engine and the Monarch deck with a Stein and Cold Wave engine. That is remarkable. Anyway, I didn't mean to get too much on that. I just wanted to make the point that the format being at the point where the metagame being where it is allows this kind of innovative approaches to deck building, and that's exciting. And I mean, I want to congratulate your brother. I understand he got second place, but if anybody else was paired up against you, I don't think they would have fared much better. So just getting as far as he did, I think, is a real testament to his innovation. And I'm certain we're going to see good things from him going forward. So I'm excited to follow him in his career as the years go on. But anyway, do you have anything about his deck that you want to talk about before we move on to the format overall?
Yeah, just the combination of Monarchs and Cyberstein and Cold Wave. I think still has a lot of potential. Like before the tournament, like he had like I said, he had the Cold Wave idea, and then I proposed, what about Cyberstein? What about Monarchs? And I mean, the deck itself was his idea, and he built it. But I was at least gladly like around when he built this, and was able to give him some impulses about it. But I think he in general would be more able to talk about this in depth. However, I definitely think that it showed that also Cyberstein is definitely a thing, and the lack of scapegoat is definitely also a strong reason, because like you can bring out Gatling Dragon, you can bring out Last Warrior from another planet, you have Master of Oz, you have King Dragoon, of course, which he also won with, and at one game, oh man, that was so cool. Have you seen this with the twin-headed Thunder Dragon?
No, go on.
My brother. Oh man, that was so cool. Like my brother. I watched the stream today, or was it in the stream, or did she tell me? I don't know. Either he told me, or it was in the stream. I don't know. But at one point he told me that he got twin-headed Thunder Dragon out of Cyberstein because he had a BLS in his hand. He was lacking of a light, and then attacked with Cyberstein, attacked with a twin-headed Thunder Dragon, and then the next turn tributed the twin-headed Thunder Dragon for Monarch, summon BLS, GG.
Wow, and that's he's awesome. A light, right? Like that's the idea. Yeah,
twin-headed Thunder Dragon, is a light, and he had everything but a light in his grave, but he had a BLF that would be lethal.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Like
that's awesome.
When he told me this, I was like, damn, let's be honest, I wouldn't have thought about this even.
It's not your typical play. You would think, it's so stupid because like my brain, if you said, okay, you need a light fusion, my brain goes to Guiltia, the 1850 level 5, only because, when I needed a light historically, that's how I do it. But my brain wouldn't have gone to twin-headed Thunder Dragon first. So the idea of even summoning that in a tournament is really funny.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And fun fact, just as a side note, his opponent had a warrior lady, so he could have even solved that problem. But his opponent was also, which was not an obvious move. So his opponent then played warrior lady and attacked over Stein, but he could have suicided into it, and then the Monarch would have come anyway, but no BLS. So it was like, when he told me this, I was like, damn, man, that was a very sophisticated play. And in general, I'd say like my brother is also definitely a player you should definitely be aware of, because he definitely has some spicy deck ideas and also some spicy plays for sure.
For the benefit of the viewers, to just key them into a little background, a little behind the scenes, we putting this together kind of last minute, and in fact, I think it's the last minute of the day for you. It's like definitely past midnight.
Yeah.
Everyone can see it's super bright where I am, but there's a time difference and it's super dark where you are. And your brother's asleep. I would have gladly talked to him and gotten him in here. But I don't blame him for wanting to sleep instead. So yeah, I mean, just to say, I agree with you. I think that your brother is going to be somebody that's worth watching going forward. I know I'm going to be watching him going forward. Yeah, I mean, congratulations to him too as well. The idea of also like another brother duo powerhouse in this community besides the Bolito brothers is also really interesting from a narrative point of view, from a storytelling point of view. I really like that. I hope that you guys continue to find success like this, where you're two brothers in the finals of a huge championship. That's it's really exciting, and I'm like I don't know what else I can say about it. It doesn't happen that often, so it's just yeah. Anyway, so I guess we can move on from this. Also, once like actually just pointing out for the benefit of the watcher that your brother did so well in this tournament that he went undefeated against everybody else that he played. The only losses that he took were to you. So yeah, that's really impressive. And like if he were playing against normal standard types of decks, I imagine he would have had a different tournament. But yeah, I mean, you were the only thing stopping him from a championship, I think.
Plus, and I think on paper he won more matches than I did, because that's how double elimination works.
Yes.
So
at the very least, I don't know if it's more, but at the very least, it had to have been the same number of matches won. As in like, but I don't know. Do you know his record actually? Was it 7-2, 8-2 or something like
that? I don't know, but I would guess that he won more than I. But yeah, you're right. It really depends in which round you lose, and so on and so forth. How many matches you have to play overall. But I wouldn't be shocked to have him at least the same number, eventually even one more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it could like if he was the last one put into the losers bracket, then he has to win that losers bracket match and before he plays you, but that losers bracket match is the win that you got over him, so he has a minimum of the same number of wins. But yeah, if it was any time before the last one, it would be more wins than you. But either way, yeah, you were the only one that he lost to. So I don't know what his other matches were. I'd like to, if you can get it for me, your replays and his replays, I'd like to throw them in the description of this video for other people to check out. They'll see how those went, but I'm sure they'll find that. I mean, when I was watching his matches, I'm just gonna say this real quickly because I kind of want to move on. But when I was watching his matches, I had no idea what the hell I was watching. I didn't know what I was like. Is he playing Monarchs? Is he playing Soul Control? Is he playing Stein OTK? Like, is he transition siding and he's like going from one deck to the next? I had literally no idea what I was watching. And I mentioned that when all his opponents were playing against him, they were thinking the same thing. They were just like, I don't know what am I side decking and threatening roar right now? I have no idea. And anyway, so congratulations to him. Congratulations to you. Let's talk about the event overall a little bit. It'll lead into, and I've got the stats and stuff up right now. So this is just to talk about going into this event. I sent you these photos before, and I mean, I'm looking at this field, and holy crap! I mean, this is a lot of different deck types. Did you expect a lot of different deck types going into this tournament? Did you expect only like people running 3 different decks? Like, what did you expect? Did you expect somebody to show up with Fusion Gate Turbo or Silent Swordsman or Strike Ninja or anything like that? Or Pac-Man? There were 3 people who played Pac-Man. Did you? I don't know. I probably wouldn't have expected that. I mean, what did you think you were going to play against? I guess is my question.
I mean, I was focusing like in particular on Chaos Warrior, regular Warrior, Chaos Turbo, so-called Chaos Turbo, and like Thunder Dragon Chaos. Those were the decks I was like in advance calculating to play against. But of course, I also thought, okay, what about Reasoning Gate Turbo, other combo decks, and so on and so forth. But the good thing is with the skill drain and like a Solemn Judgment and or a Jammer on the field, to be honest,
doesn't matter.
Exactly. It's ignorance. It's like, it's funny when I played the zombie deck, I said I played a little bit ignorant, but this time also I was like, well, I got my protections. Still, Reasoning Gate Turbo is my absolute, like, is the deck I fear the most, and
those true nades get you.
Exactly. And in general, I think there's not a single deck in Goat format I lost so many matches against than Reasoning Gate Turbo. I think from my own experience, I should have to say, in my opinion, it's the strongest deck of the format, but it has a high variance. So kind of risky to play.
It's also one of those decks, just like what you're talking about. It's also very ignorant. It doesn't actually, well, I mean, what I mean to say is it doesn't really matter what your opponent is playing. That's one of, like, going back to 2007, 2008, one of the reasons I fell in love with DDT in the first place was it did not matter 9 times out of 10 what my opponent was playing. And it felt like, you know, once you have a deck that does that, it feels like you're playing on a different level. If everybody's playing Monarchs and you're playing something like that, you're just like, I'm playing a different game, and that forces them to play on your level. And I mean, they're just not equipped to do it. So it felt, I can understand what you're saying about Reasoning Gate Turbo. I can understand if anyone would make the case that it's the best deck in the format. The thing is, I don't know, because of the point you just mentioned, because of the variance in it. I don't know if anyone's cracked it quite the way that I think it needs to be cracked in order to truly earn that title. But it is certainly like one of those decks where it's like, look, I'm paired up against it. This is a deck I can lose against, as opposed to something like Warrior Chaos Turbo, where you feel like, yeah, I've already built my deck for this. I shouldn't lose more often than not. So whereas Reasoning Gate Turbo is just kind of like, I hope you don't draw well. But anyway, I guess, what do you expect going forward now? I mean, here you are, you're in a very exclusive club. I think maybe Geist D is the only other person that has done the thing that you've done, which is won back-to-back major championship tournaments. And so you've won FLC 17 and you've won GFC 12, and you've done it now with this. I mean, people are going to see zombies and they're going to think zombies, but there's also this drain burn element of that. Do you think that people are going to start taking this more seriously? Do you think they're going to side deck decrees? Do you think they're going to run the same deck? Do you think that they're going to, I mean, part of the challenge, this is just as an aside, like as an outside observer, somebody who's playing in the format, I don't even know what to side deck anymore. Like, I mean, I could side deck, if I could side deck 3 Mobiuses and 3 World Decrees, and I'm going to get beat by zombies. So this is the challenge of dealing with this conversion side. Like, I guess, what advice do you have for anybody else who's trying to navigate this upcoming metagame? That's my one actual question. What advice do you have for people? And 2, what do you think that metagame is going to look like, regardless of whether people take your advice?
So, advice number 1, kids, eat your vegetables and play your Royal Decree. Unless your main deck also ran like 12 plus traps, then obviously, like, that's something else. But in general, if you run like Chaos deck, more or less a regular one, run preferably 3 copies of Royal Decree in your side deck. Second question. Well, man, I don't really know. I don't think like a win of a drain burn deck really will change too much. Like, I think if people would come a little bit better prepared, I think everything would go on like if this event never happened. Like, I don't necessarily think that this will make people more aware of zombies necessarily. Also, I think, like, I mean, I would call it zombie drain burn, but I think, of course, when people look at it, they were saying, oh, it's a burn deck. So it's already like in the box, and they wouldn't pull it out of this box anymore. And I think most likely over the next month, I personally would say that most of the thing in tournaments going on is business as usual. Eventually some small highlight decks, some small innovation, like my brother, for instance, is probably coming up with some spice. Eventually, myself, the problem is, I think I said this during our last video, that I right now should really more focus on my method thesis still going on. And well, yeah, the in between time in the last weeks, I did a little bit, but I could have done easily more. And I feel it's like Yu-Gi-Oh is like definitely a passion for me. Like it's really something that it's like a virus that infected me like in my childhood, and it's like every person that is absolutely hooked by Yu-Gi-Oh knows this. Like it comes in waves. Like there are some times where you're absolutely hooked and you're thinking about it a lot. Then there are times where you're less into the game. And even though I'm currently probably at my peak, I still have real life knocking on my door and say, hey man, you got obligations. So to be honest, I personally, even though it's absolutely paradox at my current high, so to say, I would rather like try to distance myself for the next 2.5 months from Yu-Gi-Oh a bit more, because that's like the deadline for my thesis. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, like especially looking at worlds, I would really like to hit this harder than last time, because last time I played absolutely zero ambition deck. And so to make it short, like I probably won't give too many new impulses to the game. I think we got a lot of creative minds out there. I hope that they are doing well, but I wouldn't be too shocked, like let's say the next events to be won by Chaos or Warriors. Mm-hmm. So I would not necessarily expect too much variation. And yeah, I mean the next big event is FLC 18 next Saturday, if I'm right. I'm not 100% sure if I will attend. I mean, I should somehow defend my title, but a little bit ambivalent. But I think like majority of decks will probably be very similar to previous event. But I really hope that one or two innovative decks get the shot. But they are very hard to predict, because I think there's still a lot of room in Gold format. There are a lot of cards that are absolutely underexplored and very, very hard to predict. And I also got some ideas in my vault, but can't put enough time into them right now to make them perfectly work.
Does your brother have any of the same sort of real life obligations knocking at the door, or should we expect to see more of him in the coming months?
Well, let's say he doesn't have a thesis to write, so he should have a little bit more time. Of course, also like real life is also a thing for him, fortunately.
Obviously, but everybody's got a real life.
Yeah, but yeah, sure. But now, for real, I think my brother is because of his second place finished yesterday. He's very hungry, and I think he's hungry. He's a good player. He has very good deck ideas. So eventually, hopefully, as the brother, I'm very hoping for him to see more of this, because I also want him to attend with me. Like in future Clash of the Champions tournament and so on and so on. He already got his world qualifier even twice, but he also should like defend, like play at the champion level, because that's where he belongs.
So I was gonna say, did both of you now have your invites? I think you had it before, but did he have one before? You were just okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He placed third, or I think he placed third place at last or GFC, or like a previous GFC, which was also like with 130 participants or so.
Gotcha.
With the turbo deck, like Reasoning Gate Turbo.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so I was gonna say that. Okay, gotcha. So I was gonna say it's good to see that qualifying doesn't actually slow him down. It actually makes him, or so you're saying it makes him more. By the way, what's his name?
Malte.
What?
Malte.
Gotcha. Okay. So, not gonna repeat that back. It's interesting that he's more hungry. It's kind of the opposite for me. I'm like, oh, thank God I've got an invite. I don't have to worry about this. The next 6 months I could just do other things and whatever. Anyway, so backing up a little bit and just elaborating on one thing you were saying. I am always really skeptical about how much one format one event will influence a format. Back in the day, this is really interesting. Like back in the day, and probably actually now in regular Yu-Gi-Oh, if COVID wasn't going on, I think one event has the ability to shake up an entire format, for sure. But with Go format in particular, it's funny because people, they go so long without playing, for example, Drain Burn, and I don't think that one person finding success with it is enough for most people to say, "Hey, I'm gonna just suddenly play with this deck that I don't really play with that often." There, a lot of people are kind of like locked into what they think is great, that it takes a long time to push them off to something else. And in particular, I mean, just as a numbers game, you were the only person using Drain Burn this event. And you know what? Actually, I still have the stats up on the screen. I've had them up for a while. It's kind of awkward. It's like no one can see our faces. Whoops. Anyway, they were looking at the stats. What I was going to try to say is that, well, I mean, it's good because we're talking about what people were using, but in this particular event, nobody, or there was only one other person. I mean, one person total running Drain Burn, but most of the field was Chaos Turbo, Chaos Warrior, Go Control, and Thunder Dragon Chaos Control, and that's maybe something like 60% of the field, but there was a 40% of the field using something different. So just as a numbers game, like it's more than a coin flip's chance that one of the decks that you expect to do well is going to do well. Yeah, I expect the next event, like actually much after you won FLC 17, I won the Clash of Champions tournament with Chaos Turbo. I think that was completely, if anyone had put money on anything, it's like, oh, why don't you just keep placing your money on the deck that's going to be most represented? That makes sense. And then, other people see that and they're just thinking, okay, zombies were a fluke. Like, this is actually what we talked about in our last video, that it's going to be so easy for people to like look at your next event, if you lose, to write it off and then go back to whatever they thought was the best thing. And then so I only ran a real deck at Clash because I wanted to win. I didn't want to do Monarchs again. But anyway, so I was gonna say that this time coming around, you won with this, but the next event, it's probably likely that somebody's gonna win with like a Chaos Warrior or Chaos Turbo deck, if that's what the majority of the field is. But the lesson that people, I don't think they necessarily got after FLC 17, and I'm hoping now that they got after GFC12, is that there is room in the format to explore with something new and find success with it. And largely in part because it's that something new. Like, you don't even necessarily have to like draw super well all the time. It could just be a function of, well, I run Solemn Judgment, I run Level Limit, and I run Wave Motion Cannon. And those three together, if I happen to draw them, there's not a lot that other people can do about it unless they happen to draw X, Y, and Z. But then I could draw A, B, and C or whatever like that. But like, these are structurally cards that have big impacts on the format, and just wish more people I mean, let me back up. I'm not saying I want more people.
Be careful what you're asking for.
No. Don't people look the Delinkquent right now as an example of what you should emulate, only in terms of what the innovation he's bringing to the table. Don't copy Drain Burn exactly. I don't want to see more of that. But yeah, and the same thing with your brother. The idea of Cold Wave has been such a strong card for so long in this game, and Goat format was the one place where its effect hasn't been touched. And sure enough, are we on the brink of a new era of Cold Wave being good? I don't know, but that this is a card that, like, there's so many cards like this in Go format where it's just like, if you give them a chance, especially now that less and less people are running Scapegoat, it opens up a whole world of possibilities, and it makes it for a really interesting thing. And I'm encouraging everybody to look at something other than Chaos Warrior and Chaos Turbo. It might be your ticket to finals. And with that, Jannick, listen, we've been talking a long time. I'm looking at the clock now, and it's a lot longer than we talked about. And I know it's late by you. Is there anything else that you want to say to people? Anything you want to say about the deck, about the event? anything. You want to say anything? It doesn't even have to be Yu-Gi-Oh related. You want to talk about a book? You want to talk? Is there anything you want to say to anybody?
Yeah, definitely. Like I didn't do this last time because it would have been eventually a little bit redundant because I did like before we did the video, I did a Jinzo and Tonic video, and I also did this at the end. But this time, I definitely want to like take my chance and like give some shout outs like to my brother, of course, but we already talked about him, and he made like he doesn't need a shout out from me because he like definitely nailed it himself. Then as well, want to give another shout out to another decent Yu-Gi-Oh player. He's called French Alpha on Dueling Book, and he's a very decent player. Like he has a little bit to level up his tournament game, but if he plays in the next tournaments as he plays, like when we two play, then you better watch out for him. This dude is absolutely on fire, and I'm pretty sure he also will come up bigger in future tournaments. So mark my words. And of course, also like I want to give a shout out to my girlfriend. That is like, it's cheesy to say this, but man, she's supporting me with my hobby. Like she's like the best girlfriend you can ask for, and even like she even watches those videos with me where like two grown-up men we're talking about a children's card game, and man, it's over. How long are we talking now? I don't know, over an hour, and she's she's loving it because I love it, and that's the best you can ask for. So that's definitely something this time I wanna say. And that being said, yeah, I also of course like don't wanna be super redundant or extend this too much longer, because I'm pretty sure like guys that are watching are also looking at the video and we're like, whoa, 1.5 hours, man, that's long. So I'm perfectly fine with that. That being said,
That's why you gotta watch these on 1.25 or 1.5 speed.
Yeah.
Just cut it down. All right, sorry, go on.
No, thanks. That's it. And yeah, again, yeah, very, very glad to be here. I was also very, very surprised actually that I would win like so fast. And like when we last time like said, yo, see you see you soon in the manner, I was definitely expecting us to do another video, but in this speed, man, that's great. Definitely like didn't really like calculate with such a success.
I was gonna say I mean, we ended the last video with me saying like I hope you find success again soon, and I hope I want to be back here with you. And you were like, sure, or something like that. You said, yeah, I'd gladly, I think you said. And at the time, I remember like I was telling my girlfriend after our video, I was like, yeah, I made this video. She did not watch it. She's not that so, but then she's like, are you gonna do this all the time? I was like, no, it's not.
Is this a new like side relationship I should know?
No, is this are you gonna start making YouTube videos all the time? Like, no, what are you this never happens. So don't worry about it. Today I'm like, hey, do you mind stepping out for an hour or so? She's like, are you serious? It's like, it's the same. Look, it's hard to contextualize for her that this doesn't happen every day, but she doesn't. Anyway. No, so like, yeah, I'm with you that this is, I did not expect to see you so soon. I am glad though that I am seeing you as soon as I am. And I mean, outside of this break that you need to take, focus on your thesis, get that done. Whenever you're ready and you come back, even if I'm not so heavily involved in playing competitively at that point, I'm gonna root for your success then, and hopefully, not jinxing nothing, but I hope we do this again, and I hope that the next time, maybe do something different than Drain Burn, do something different than zombies. Maybe I don't know exactly. Just next thing I know, it's gonna be Ryukoki and Empty Jar, and I don't really want. So.
Oh, actually, it's
stop it! No, stop it! Stop. Okay, none of that. So, I don't want to see any.
Have something like that. But okay, don't go and give it away.
Anyway, listen, Jannick, I appreciate you chatting with me here, both for the community's sake and on behalf of GoFormat.com. And congratulations again to you. Congratulations to your brother. And for everyone who's watching this, if you liked this conversation, actually, even if you didn't like this conversation, make sure you like, comment on this video. Jannick and I will certainly interact with you if you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything like that. But more importantly, subscribe to this channel. That'll be a really big help for GoFormat.com. And well, Jannick, I'll catch you in a couple months, man.
Gladly.
All right, take care.
Like Delinkquent. I don't know, probably some people think I'm actually too stupid to write the word properly, but it's actually a pun, with ink and Delinkquent. That's the whole thing. It's a pun.
Wow. You just
blew
my mind.
A German making an English pun. That's sick, huh?